Galactic Unification, Chapter 1. The Shadows from the Stars, Part 1. Whispers of the Unknown. The silent hum of the cosmos, a lullaby humanity had sung to itself for millennia, began to warp. It was not a sudden cacophony, but a subtle dissonance, a note played just slightly off-key that only the most attuned ears could detect. At the furthest outposts of human observation, near the frigid, ghost-ridden expanse of the Kuiper Belt and beyond, something was amiss. The vast, indifferent canvas of space, usually a source of profound contemplation and boundless wonder for Dr. Eris Thorne and his dedicated team at the Lunar Observatory, started to feel watched. Dr. Thorne, a man whose life's work was etched in the starlight and cosmic dust, first noticed it in the anomalous readings from a deep space probe designated Voyager 12. It was a mission intended for the mundane task of cataloging interstellar medium densities, a predictable, albeit lonely, task. But Voyager 12 was reporting energy signatures that defied classification. They weren't the familiar radio waves from pulsars, nor the incandescent glow of distant nebulae. These were structured, rhythmic, and they were originating from a region of space that should have been utterly devoid of any significant electromagnetic activity. Another one, Eris, Ilara Vance, Thorne's lead astrophysicist, announced, her voice tight with a mixture of frustration and a nascent unease. She pointed to a monitor displaying a complex waveform, a jagged, almost defiant pattern against the usual cosmic static. Probe Voyager 12 registered a burst of modulated energy, directed towards us. Duration, 0.7 seconds. Intensity, negligible by interstellar standards. But the pattern, it's not natural. Thorne leaned closer, his keen eyes tracing the oscillations. Ilara was right. There was a distinct, non-random quality to it. It wasn't the chaotic symphony of a stellar explosion or the gentle murmur of background radiation. It was like a carefully crafted Morse code message sent from a place where no one should have been able to send anything. Define modulated again, Ilara. The energy output wasn't uniform, Eris. It fluctuated in a complex sequence. Think of it like a heartbeat, but far more intricate. And it repeated. Not perfectly, there were variations, but the underlying structure was undeniably there. Ilara ran a hand through her already disheveled hair. We've cross-referenced with every known natural phenomenon, solar flares, magnetar activity, even theoretical phenomena like exotic particle decays. Nothing matches. Initially, such reports were dismissed with a weary sigh and a familiar set of explanations. Sensor malfunctions, cosmic ray interference, software glitches in probes that had been pushing the boundaries of their operational lifespans for decades. The scientific community, grounded in rigorous proof and observable data, was inherently skeptical of the extraordinary. Thorne himself had once spent 3 months chasing a phantom signal that turned out to be a faulty toaster oven in a neighboring research facility. But the anomalies persisted. They weren't isolated incidents. Similar, though equally faint, energy signatures began to be detected by other deep space instruments, the Kepler successor, the Aperture Telescope Array in orbit around Mars, even the automated seismic sensors on Europa's icy shell, which, for reasons unknown, were picking up faint, resonant vibrations from beyond the heliosphere. The data, when painstakingly pieced together, painted a picture that was becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. It's not just energy signatures, Eris, reported Dr. Jian Li, head of orbital mechanics, his face a mask of professional concern on the holographic comms screen. We're seeing deviations in orbital trajectories. Minor, almost imperceptible, but consistent. Objects in the Oort cloud, cometary bodies, even some of the larger Kuiper Belt objects. They're not behaving as predicted. Their paths are subtly, but persistently, shifting. It's as if something invisible is nudging them. Thorne rubbed his temples. Celestial mechanics were his first love, the elegant dance of gravity and inertia that governed the heavens. To see these predictable patterns disrupted, even slightly, was deeply unsettling. Nudging them? What kind of force could do that at such distances, Jian? We're talking about objects with immense mass. Precisely. It defies conventional physics as we understand it, Li replied, his voice somber. Unless there's a gravitational influence we're not accounting for. An object, or objects, of significant mass, moving with deliberate intent on a trajectory that suggests observation. Observation? The word hung in the sterile air of the control room, a palpable weight. The vastness of space, once a symbol of infinite possibility and serene beauty, was beginning to feel like a dark, fathomless ocean, and humanity had just detected ripples on its surface, hinting at something immense and unknown lurking beneath. A growing unease, a prickling sensation at the back of the neck, began to permeate the scientific community. It was an invisible tide, rising slowly, eroding the shores of comfortable certainty. Whispers began in hushed tones in academic forums, in encrypted research channels, and late-night conversations fueled by caffeine and existential dread. Skepticism remained, a vital bulwark against hysteria, but it was being worn down by the relentless accumulation of unexplainable data. The energy signatures, initially weak and sporadic, started to increase in frequency and intensity. The orbital deviations became more pronounced, more difficult to dismiss as anomalies. Probes were reporting fleeting, almost spectral visual data. Faint, impossibly vast shapes that flickered at the edge of resolution, too large and too swift to be asteroids, too alien in their geometry to be natural phenomena. They appeared and vanished like ghosts in the machine, leaving behind only tantalizing fragments of evidence. Thorne found himself spending sleepless nights staring at the celestial charts, tracing the extrapolated trajectories of these shifting celestial bodies. He revisited old theories, fringe concepts he had long ago filed away as speculative fiction. Could there be phenomena beyond the current understanding of physics? Could something be manipulating gravitational fields? Was it possible that something was out there, in the cold, dark expanse, deliberately altering the celestial clockwork? Alara Vance, in her relentless pursuit of answers, began to notice a pattern in the energy bursts. They weren't just random signals anymore. They seemed to be mapping, like a sonar pulse, pinging and reflecting, gathering information about the local spacetime. Eris, she'd said, her voice trembling with a mixture of discovery and dread. The energy signatures. They're correlating with the gravitational shifts. It's like they're probing, feeling out the landscape. And it's not just around the Oort cloud. We're seeing faint echoes, much fainter, near the heliopause. They're moving inwards. Inwards. The single word sent a chill that had nothing to do with the artificial climate control of the lunar observatory. The vast, unfathomable distance that had always been humanity's shield, the sheer immensity of space that kept Earth isolated and safe, was no longer a barrier. It was a highway, and something was using it to approach. The sense of foreboding deepened. The universe, once a grand, majestic stage for humanity's aspirations, began to feel claustrophobic, menacing. Every shadow seemed to hold a hidden threat, every distant star a potential observer. The familiar constellations, once symbols of order and navigation, now seemed like eyes, watching from the encroaching darkness. Thorne recalled a conversation with a retired astronomer, a maverick named Dr. Silas Croft, who had spent his career theorizing about non-baryonic matter and its potential influence on cosmic structures. Croft had spoken of shadow civilizations, entities that existed in dimensions or states of matter that made them all but invisible to conventional detection, capable of manipulating forces far beyond human comprehension. At the time, Thorne had politely listened, chalking it up to the passionate ramblings of an aging scientist. Now, Croft's words echoed with an unnerving prescience. The subtle anomalies were no longer just whispers. They were growing louder, more insistent. They spoke of a presence, ancient and patient, that had been observing humanity from the silent abyss. The unease was coalescing into a tangible dread, a premonition that the universe was far more crowded and far more dangerous than humanity had ever dared to imagine. The vastness of space, that boundless frontier, was not empty, and whatever resided within it was now turning its attention towards the small blue marble that humanity called home. The stage was being set, not for a grand unveiling, but for a confrontation humanity was utterly unprepared for. The silence of the void was about to be broken, and the symphony of the stars was about to give way to a terrifying crescendo.